Welcome to chess, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, so as you guys know, we're playing the U.S. Championships right now, and Wesley So is doing incredibly well. Leading the pack. Only a draw has happened for him. He's been winning a lot, stuff, right? All right, so the game I want to bring for you guys right now is out of round 7, and it is between Jeffery Xiong and Hikaru Nakamura. And it's a good one. It's a really good one. A very masterfully played game. I'm not gonna tell you which one yet. Well, we'll get to that in a minute later on. If you guys are ready, I'm ready, and we'll be taking a look at this game. So let's roll. See what we got. All right. So we have E4, G6, D4, D6. So we have the Pirc. Now, a lot of times, the Pirc is referred to as the Pirc, just because of the way it's spelled. But it was actually named after a Yugoslav chess grandmaster from the 1900s. Name was Vaja Pirc. So just in the future, it's pronounced Pirc, not Pirc, for sure. Okay. All right. So we have knight to F3, knight to F6, knight to C3, just defending that E4 pawn, making sure it doesn't just get snapped off the board for no reason. Bishop to G7, bishop to E3. Now, a lot of times in this position, you'll see like bishop E2 or bishop D3 or even bishop C4. Developing the queen. A lot of times when you're playing white in these positions, you'll develop the bishop on the king side, and then you'll get castled real quick. All right, so moving on here. So we have C6. And so usually when you're playing on either side of the board and you see a move like C3 or C6, the intention's pretty clear. So for those of you who have played this as white, the intention obviously is to push B5. You're trying to knock this knight away from the protection of this E4 square. So you can just, gobble on the pawn. Because, pawns are tasty, for knights and things, or other pieces, anyway. All right, so we have queen to D2. And like I said, we have B5, trying to be pesky, trying to say, let me just go ahead and knock your knight out the way. So we have bishop to D3, defending the pawn, just in case, the pawn does push forward. Knight B to D7. Like I said, you always want to make sure that you correctly say or write with your notation exactly which knight has moved to the specific square. That way, later when you're doing your analysis, you just know, you remember which one moved to where. Because as far as knights are concerned, if you don't put the right thing, all of the analysis might just go out the window if you can't remember which knight it was that moved, right? All right, so we have H3, just making sure we defend against any of these little knight G4, or even later on maybe bishop G4 type situations. All right, so we have E5. Okay, D takes E5, D takes E5, A4. He's not liking that pawn sitting there, so he's trying to trade it off and get a little favorable situation going on over here. And so now we see B4, pushing that knight out of the way. So we have knight to E2. And so, like I said before, that's why the bishop D3 move was so, came so in handy. Because, bang, right. Because now since we had to retreat the knight, we have the defense of that E4 square. All right, so we have A5, just solidifying that structure there on the queen side. C3, trying to undermine the position, the structure on the queen side. All right, so we have C5, just making sure that we're extra solid. Even in case of trades, we can take back with the pawn, and we still have our solid structure. All right, so we have castles. So looking at the situation right here, comparing white situation to black situation, kind of in the middle there, you see, white's pieces a little bit, kind of jumbled up, but the rooks are connected, the king is castled. And so even, without even going into like any type of computer analysis, you can see that the position for white is considerably better than the position for black. Black still has to get his bishop developed some kind of way, maybe bishop B7 or, you know, the a6 or something like that. You know, the queen needs to get off the back rank, and also he needs to be castled. So we're looking at this position from a development standpoint. You know, black is a little bit behind by a couple of moves and stuff. All right, so we have castle. So you know, one of the moves that you know rectifies what I was saying before. All right, so we have knight to g3, bishop to b7. All right, so we have rook f to d1. Like I said, I mean, the same thing goes for knights as goes for rooks. You want to make sure that we're noting exactly which rook moved where, because, you know, that can mess up your analysis for later on. All right, so you have queen to e7. And so now if you look at both sides, you know, both sides are pretty equal. You know, we have, you know, both sides have their rooks connected. The development is complete, you know, and then we can start to kind of, you know, try to see what we can do as far as going into a middle game situation, or, you know, starting to attack each other tactically and stuff like that. All right, so we have rook a to c1. And now rook a to c1 is a completely new move. We've actually seen bishop c4 before, bishop b5 before, and we've seen queen to c2 before. Never seen rook a to c1. But you know, it just the intention is pretty legitimate. I mean, you might take with the c pawn at some point and, you know, open that c file up. And so I mean, if we're looking at the position right here, you know, we have these rooks, you know, on this these D and C files. You know, all the white pieces are developed. You know, these bishops are really good on these diagonals. Yeah, let me draw a better a better arrow than that for this one. Okay. And then this bishop is also influencing this. So I mean, just based off of the influence of the pieces and stuff, you know, white has a slightly better position in this particular position here at this point in the game. So you have rook f to c8, and so we have trays on b4. So c takes b4, c takes b4, bishop to c4, and so like I said before, I mean, we have both rooks bearing down on that file. We have the bishop attacking the very delicate f7 square. You guys always hear me talking about this all the time. That f7 square and the f2 square, this one, bam, bam, are very tender squares. Now, right now, I mean, you have the queen defending it, but usually the king is the only one defending it. So, I mean, if you have a move like this or something like that, you know, you can put a lot of pressure on this pawn right here. So always keep in mind the f2 and f7 squares, guys. All right, so we have knight. To f8. And so in this particular situation, you don't have to specify which knight move, because when you have a situation where only one knight or only one of the rooks can actually move into a square, you don't have to note which one it was, because clearly only one of them is able to. So for example, if white was to make this move here, let's say we're moving the rook back to a1, you could just say rook to a1, because this rook is not able to move through this rook to get to a1. So a little tricky, but you know, after some practice doing it for a while, you know, playing tournaments and things like that, you know, you get a little bit better understanding of you know, how to note stuff, you know. All right, so we have queen to d6. Just want to kind of trade off that queen there, and as you guys notice, the queen is undefended. So you know, you kind of have a little bit of an issue here. You know, you're attacking that e5 pawn, or you're also attacking the undefended queen. So the queen is a little bit overloaded right now. All right, so we go ahead and trade. Queen takes d6, rook takes d6, rook to c7. Now, something I want you guys to notice. Let's see, 21. Right, something I want you guys to notice in this position. We back up just a touch, right? You know, some of you guys might have been looking like, well, wait a minute, hold on. Like, okay, so we got, like, this pawn is attacked by this knight, and then the bishop is attacking too. So, like why don't I just take the pawn, right? All right, so let's go ahead and take a look and see what that looks like if you were to try to take this pawn right here. So let's say, for example, you don't move rook to c7. You go ahead and just say, hey, man, I'm just going to snap this pawn off the board, right? All right, cool. You go ahead and take here with the knight as white, and then you'll take back with the bishop. Okay, cool. But the problem is, like I said before, guys, that f7 square is extra delicate. And so what you have actually in this position is this move knight to g5. And so knight to g5 attacks this pawn. There isn't really a good defense against it. And also this bishop is attacked. And so it kind of seems like you would have won a pawn, but you know, you have some issues as far as, you know, the pawn being attacked, the bishop being attacked. I mean, there's not really enough time for you to, you know, do a legitimate defense. I mean, you can try to back up like this, but you know, you have multiple options. I mean, you can just take here, trade and stuff down, maybe move rook over, or you can just simply, you know, take with the knight, you know, which is a possibility too. Just put some type of discovery, you know, attack on the king. And so some of you also might have been sitting there thinking, well, I mean, I don't have to take with the knight. Like, what if I just take with the bishop, right? All right, so in this particular position, you actually have a tactic, and it's called remove the defender. Every now and then you get these types of situations that will come up in the game where you can almost sacrifice a piece of material to remove the defender of a piece so that you can just outright win the piece. And so you have a situation right here where you can move rook. So rook can take f6. Now it kind of seems like, well, I mean, why am I giving up a rook for, you know, I'm losing the exchange right there because we trade down and everything being equal, I just lost the rook. Actually, no, because in this particular situation right here, this bishop is attacked. So, you know, it's a big question to the bishop. Like, where does the bishop want to go, right? And so, like, for example, in this particular position, if you say, hey, man, like, it just makes the most sense, you know, for me to just take back another piece instead of just moving away, right? So, like, let's say, for example, you say, okay, I'm going to take that knight right here, right? Now, this rook actually has the ability to just come back. And so if you do the piece count, white has an extra piece. They never lost their rook. You know, they were able to just take that bishop back because it happened to be in that particular square. So if we just back up a touch, that's why we see rook to c7, because, you know, we want to defend, you know, this rank. We want to defend that pawn and everything. So, all right, so we have rook to b6. And so this has a very similar concept with it. You know, it's undesirable for you to take, you know, here, because then you still have that same tactic again. You can remove the defender here, and, you know, you kind of have a big question, you know, as to exactly what you're going to be doing, because this rook is undefended and it's attacked. This knight is undefended and it's attacked. Not like a long knight, a short knight. Okay. And so you kind of have, you know, you don't have a lot that you can really do in this position here. I mean, you can try to take here, but then the rook is gone. You can take right here, the knight is gone. And if you guys see, like I said before, you know, you're just up that extra piece. So we see rook to e8, defending, you know, that. All right, so we have knight to g5. And so in this particular position with the rook move over to e8, those tactics that you had before are no longer present. And so, you know, now you have a big question of possibly losing that pawn. So knight to g5 rectifies that situation there. You know, also still continues to chip away and you know, attack that f7 square. So you see the theme of attacking f7 is really strong in this particular game right here. All right, so we have bishop to a8, rook to a6, bishop back to b7, and we just snap a pawn off. And so, like I said, because of the threats that white was able to produce, it was you know, they were able to just snap a pawn off. And so now you have a situation where you have a completely passed pawn here on a4, and you know, there's a situation where black is going to have to try to defend against that pawn moving, and so it's going to have to start using some of his pieces to block that pawn. So we have bishop back to a8. All right, so we have bishop to b3, rook to d7, rook to a6. And like I said before, that removing the defender tactic is still there. And so, you know, we can't just take you know, on e4 whenever we want to, because we're going to be losing a piece there. All right, so now we try to rectify that by pushing h6. And so now in this position, go ahead and take on f7. Seems like a sacrifice, but, you know, they'll be getting it back in a second here. All right, so we have rook takes f7, bishop takes f7, and king takes f7. All right, and so now we have rook to c7 check. All All right, king back to f8. And so we're just doubling up on that bishop here with rook. Rook c to a7. And so the bishop is kind of ran out of room. You know, there's not a lot that the bishop can really do. You know, the bishop can't move here. The bishop can't move here. Can't move there, of course. Can't take. Because like I said before, we have the removing the defender. So if we were to just go into kind of a little sample real quick, you know, the bishop would take here, and then the rook would take here. Queen would take there, and then we'll be in a position like that. But like I said before, there's not a whole lot that black can really do in this position because they're basically facing the loss of their bishop. So that's exactly what Nakamura does. He takes on e4. He goes into the variation we were talking about before. So we have rook takes f6, bishop takes f6, and then knight takes e4. So I kind of showed you guys a variation already, but you know I was kind of making it seem like he wasn't going to go into that, but fix that. Come on. Okay, that's good enough. All right, cool. All right, so we have a bishop back to d8, and so we're gonna go ahead and try to pin it and win it here. So we have rook to a8, and so now we have some issues here. You know, with the rook pinning this bishop down to this rook, and so there's not a whole lot of movability that the rook has at this point. And so some of you might be thinking, well, I mean, let me just defend the rook. Let me just move here. Like, that'll defend the rook and everything will be all a-okay, right? No. No, it's not. Because you have this move here. Bazam! No, that's not where you want to be at. You don't want to be in Forksville. That's not. Population should be 0 in Forksville. Never. Nobody. Smaller than a small town. Okay, so backing up here just a touch. We have knight to e6. And now, like I said before, you just have so many problems in this position. So not only are you down an entire pawn, you have this passed pawn that's going to go, you know, it's going to make a touchdown. You know, it's going to hit to the end zone, NFL blitz style, right? You know, you also have the situation, like I said before, you know, you can move king here, but you got, what is that? Oh yeah, no, it already moved to e6. That's why I can't move. Okay. You know, you have king being able to move here. You have a fork here. The bishop can't take back because you have that. That's gonna come with this, and just everything everywhere. And so, in light of this position and how miserable it was for black, Nakamura actually resigned the game. So that is that. And that's how the cookie crumbles. Sometimes, you know, you get in positions that you just, you know, you don't really have much to do. And so you have to throw in the towel. It's okay. But nobody likes losing though, you know, so. All right, but guys, that is, let me just get it right this time because I did say the wrong thing last time. It is round 7, and that is Jeffery Xiong's victory over the current U.S. champion, Hikaru Nakamura. And go ahead and subscribe and like, and let me know if there's any other games. If I have the time, I can do them. And if you guys like, I want you guys to give me some feedback on the pieces moving. I increased the volume on the pieces, and so you can hear the little sound effects when the pieces are moving. So go ahead and let me know if you like that. If you want me to turn it down some, turn it up some, I can do, you know, I can do whatever on it. You know, I thought it would be kind of cool for people to hear the sounds. I personally don't really like sounds. I like for it to just be completely silent, but you know, I'm making these videos for y'all. So I want y'all to be, you know, satisfied with everything. And so, like I said, comment, let me know if you like it. Give me thumbs up on everything, you know. And I will see you guys. I'm going to be making another video here for round 9. I'll see you guys then. Appreciate it.